On this week's NFV SDN Reality Check, we speak with VMware on its views of development and deployment of NFV-based platforms for the telecom industry, as well as challenges going forward. Well, thanks for joining us on this week's NFV SDN Reality Check. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief here at RCR Wireless News. And this week we are joined by Gabriele Di Piazza, who's the VP of Product and Solutions for the Telco NFV group at VMware. Talk a bit about the NFV market. So yeah, Gabriele, thanks for joining us this week. We appreciate it. And I apologize for butchering your name there. I'm sure I didn't do a great enough job, but thanks for joining us anyway.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Thanks for giving me the opportunity, actually.
Very good, very good. Well, let me start off with, for those who don't know much about VMware, I'm guessing most people who are watching this have an idea or have really seen the name. Maybe a little background on the company, maybe what you guys do in terms of work with the NFV and kind of the virtualization space, and maybe some work there also with the telecom space as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, VMware has been around for 18 years. Right? It's been founded in 1998. I would say is a prime provider and leader in cloud and virtualization technologies. You could argue actually VMware created this market, right? Yeah. I would say a lot has happened since then. VMware has evolved in a set of technologies, both in cloud management, operations management. As probably most recently, we evolved into desktop virtualization and mobile device management, as well as in network virtualization. So we have a very vibrant business in network virtualization as well. And I would say telecom NFV is a key focus because obviously all the our audience here, they know pretty well that telecom networks are undergoing a massive transformation, not just a transformation towards software, but towards software and cloud, so virtualization through cloud technologies. And VMware is interested in playing in this market. We have a great track record here, so we see this as a key market for VMware. Not just from a technology perspective, but to actually deepen our relationship with telecom providers by being at the core of their network transformation, which also means services transformation and business transformation as well.
Very good, very good. Well, I guess obviously you guys do have quite a bit of history in the virtualization space. I think it's almost part of your name there, really. But I guess as you look at how this market has evolved and maybe with a focus on kind of, I guess, NFV, I guess what's been your view, or the company's view on kind of the pace of that development and employment, I guess in general, but also as it's focused on the telecom space? What's been kind of your view on that evolution so far?
Yeah, I think my opinion is this is inevitable. Inevitable because of the way and the pace networks are evolving. We are driving fast towards 5G and mobile edge computing. And therefore, I think we will actually see much more convergence between IT infrastructure and network infrastructures. Virtualization is essential because the ability to effectively dynamically provision and move workloads and applications or virtual network functions or network components, and therefore the services that go with it, will actually be a required functionality to have an efficient network build out and operations.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, no, I see in terms of NFV, there's been a lot of different discussions. I think we're finally seeing actually the movement from, let's say, initial implementations. I don't even want to discuss proof of concept that already happened a couple of years ago. And now we are actually experiencing the actually real, prime time production, evolution, and implementation. So we are in the middle of many large-scale implementations out there. Currently, we work with over 45 telecom service providers with over 70 plus implementations in production. And that's the visibility that we have, right? So we, again, as I said, this is actually going mainstream, and there will be growth between now and 2020, 2021 plus, but it's actually happening right now.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned on the timing aspect of it and the 5G evolution as well, because it does seem like that these two, I guess they are somewhat connected with virtualization and 5G, but 5G is really dependent on what comes along with virtualization. So it does seem like the timing of these there's a lot of talk about kind of this 2020 timeframe for things. And it seems like that's going to be, where we'll see these 5G networks start to come commercially, but also we'll start to see broader uses of virtualization platforms. And it does seem like you need to have that platform in place to really make 5G truly what 5G is. I mean, there might be some initial 5G deployments that maybe don't require virtualization, but to get that true 5G kind of experience that people expect, those virtualized platforms are going to be pretty key to a lot of that.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I was thinking about it a couple of days ago. It's almost like two things are happening at the same time, or in parallel tracks, but one is dependent from the other. You might think of certain dynamics such as network slicing. Of course, it's not necessarily just virtualization, but we require virtualization. At the same time, I actually think the ability to build and have your network in a dynamic way, driven by analytics, especially at the edge, will require a very high level of virtualization. So is that called virtualization technology? Is that called 5G? I think, of course, there will be a change in network technology and topologies, but I think the two will go hand in hand. I think, I don't think 5G will happen without virtualization, and I think that's something that we see in the planning process. We now start to see in the engineering efforts, and there's a lot of attention in making sure to make the right choices in getting there, both from a core network perspective and basically the edge and radio access network perspective right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. It does seem like the operators who are perhaps a little more down the path of 5G or understand maybe the intricacies of 5G, they're the ones that seem to be more in tune with the fact that they do need these virtualized platforms in place to kind of really bring out all those advantages there. So yeah, it does seem like the timing of it is pretty interesting. But I guess as you view, kind of the evolution towards the telecom space here, what's been maybe some of the bigger challenges that have kind of faced the development of this? I mean, like you said, I know that the proof of concepts were obviously still are some ongoing, but it did seem like the past couple of years, there've been a lot of POCs going on. It seems like those have kind of worked through the processes. There were some questions about scalability at some point as well. I guess as you look at kind of this evolution, what has been some of the bigger challenges that have kind of been in place and been surmounted in terms of supporting what the telecom space needs from virtualized platforms?
Yeah, I think we can look at it from a couple of perspectives. There's a technical angle, of course. I would say scalability, standardization to some extent, because there's a major change, right? I always call this, it's a triple jump, right? It's not a change from a hardware-based, proprietary hardware-based network to compute or x86. It's actually a movement all the way into a cloud environment, which is very different than running software in a virtualized environment. It's basically something that creates volatility across the board. So there's an aspect of technology coming to maturity and an ecosystem coming together, which I think has matured significantly over the last couple of years and will keep maturing. I think there's another angle which we are facing every day, probably coming from this angle of convergence of information technology, IT, software, and network as well. I think the topic of talent and people. Yeah. The way networks have been built, tested, planned, the way services have been built, tested, and planned, and launched are going to be changing right now. Therefore, there's a lot of talent that's required. There's almost a DNA or DNA change that is required in the core network. And we see much more convergence and collaboration between the traditional IT groups and the network groups. But this goes across the board in the telecom environment. It's not just about network. This is about service design, service introduction, marketing, and so forth. So I think the technology aspect, also a people talent aspect. I think what Telco will basically deal with is this combination. This is a major change, and that's why some of the let's say expertise, some of what we actually have seen happening in the enterprise, is one of the biggest benefits of the value that we take to market right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know I've talked to a lot of operators about this, and that's been one of their biggest concerns, is being able to get their current workforce in tune with this new way of looking at networks. Again, it's not just a hardware network anymore, which the space has been used to over the past 30 years and longer for wireline. But yeah, it is a whole new way to view things. And if they can't get their employees up to speed, I know a lot of organizations have been working to implement online tutorials and training for people to get them up to speed on this. But yeah, like you mentioned, that seems like that's a challenge that might almost be the biggest challenge, because you have to get the people in place to really handle a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, and there are many dimensions to this. One aspect is the development effort, right? Development and DevOps, if you think about it. The other aspect is the operations. Telcos are massive operations, OSS, assurance, and so forth. And this is also a world that will change from operating based on network and network devices to operations of network services based on software devices. Think about testing. How do you actually test an end-to-end service? How do you test the function? All the way to, as you said, training and many other aspects of service introduction. If you look at the quality, right? So of course, telecom operators' ambitions to compete with OTT players, and also being, of course, as fast as or faster or more innovative than OTT players, also sometimes takes into consideration a different concept of quality, right? But now, as you know, customer experience management and quality is also top of mind in any carrier. So I think there will be trade-offs, and that would require, I think, a skill change. That's again, from back in the technology department all the way into the marketing, awareness, service description department. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and as you mentioned, kind of that ability to compete against some of these new players out there. Obviously, the OTT guys have, over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years, ever since the app space has really come online, they have really become pretty significant players in the telecom world, not traditional telecom world, but the telecom world. I guess, our operators, even if they implement a great or a robust virtualized platform and are able to really evolve their networks, is there really a place for them to compete, you think, with these OTT guys who have a very different mindset when it comes to what consumers might want? It seems like, kind of coming from different angles here, should operators try to use these platforms to really compete against these guys, or should they try to look at perhaps other ways to maybe grow their business, to expand in maybe different directions, to kind of, get the most usage out of these virtualized platforms?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think probably number one question. I think this will vary. It will vary on geography. Will vary the different players. Of course, we're seeing the OTT phenomenon or disintermediation coming from the media world, right? It's easy, everybody points to the over-the-top players in video communications, starting probably from US or UK, right? First of all, but this is happening across the world at the same time. But we're also seeing now distribution agreements put in place between telecom providers and media providers, if not even a deeper type of relationship, such as mergers and acquisitions across the value chain. This has been, tried in the past and again right now. So time will tell. I would say that at the end of the day, the business model drives the conversation, and if telecom will be open to partnership or federation of multiple services, I think. Again, as I said, this will also be dependent on geography where you are. Some countries in Europe are different than countries in Asia. Some countries in US are different for regulatory perspective and a local perspective. There's another aspect. I think over-the-top competition comes on all sorts of shapes or form, right? So VoIP and voice was another one, which of course is disrupted a long time ago. Now we start to see the wave of business services. So looking at wide area networks or adoption of SD-WAN, it's another area where will telco, compete, provide, federate, or will telco try to have a different stance? I actually think there will be much more collaboration required between telcos and OTT players. That might be one of the recipe for success. What we actually see in a broader scheme, and this is one of the, let's say, overarching strategy from a VMware perspective in telco and NFV, is the fact that cloud services will start to be more and more pervasive and federated. And this also embrace public cloud as well, given some recent announcement that we made, right? So the ability to distribute application services, workloads on the edge, but at the same time on the all the way through different clouds is another key dynamic there.
Makes sense. And I guess maybe a little off topic slightly, but I know the security aspect when it comes to cloud is always a big challenge for operators. I know a lot of work is being happening in terms of making sure that cloud deployments are secure. I guess should everybody be comfortable enough with the current level of security that they can deploy these kind of clouds, whether they're public or private? Obviously, private is probably a lot more secure, but can the market look at these kind of hybrid type of deployments and be pretty comfortable with what's out there today in terms of security options?
I think it's top of mind. One of the key drivers of what we're doing is to look at the layer of networking and security. So security, not just from an isolated point, but security across, right? From the network to the endpoint and everything in between. Mm-hmm. What we've basically been doing, VMware, is looking at security holistically. And even in our recent announcements around public cloud, security has always been actually upfront. How do you bring those security policies, how do you bring them with you across any environment and ideally across any device that you work through? I think it's actually a key topic and everybody's looking at it, so I don't think there will be effective cloud deployments without security.
Makes sense. Well, I guess another topic too, you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, was I guess the work when it comes to maybe standards, or I guess how interoperability might be a good word for it too. I know a lot of operators I've talked to, a lot of vendors kind of expressed the fact that there is still some issues when it comes to making sure that these deployments, these virtualized platforms from various vendors, at the end of the day, when an operator deploys them, can talk to each other and can work together. I know operators are always trying to get out of this whole vendor locked model that they've had in the past with their hardware vendors. They want to have these big open ecosystems. I guess, how does VMware view maybe any challenges in terms of interoperability or the need for standards, or I know obviously open source is a big part of this as well. What's your general view on how all these things kind of play together for the telecom operators out there?
Yeah, even here, a couple of conversations happen at the same time. So I think from in open standards, we're very active. We're trying to participate as much as we can in many of the standards. Most recently, we joined and contributed to the open source manual, as an example, by building a full connector, and we are now part of their, advisory council there. We just joined OpenO as an example. And we are very active in different standard bodies as well. I think from a standardization perspective, this is one of the areas which is also causing a lot of change, right? Because the movement from hardware to software also means relook at the standards, and standards all over. So from south to north, east to west, right? From the switching components all the way to management and orchestration components. In terms of open source, I actually think open source is, it's another key topic. I think open source is actually helping innovation, but at the same time, open source is not something that is going to go straight into telecom network. So open APIs, open standards, absolutely. If you look at the actual operations and cost of open source, there's it's important to look at total cost of ownership, the ability to have day-to operations, the ability to actually have the right skill people to support this, and the right scalability to support this. So we integrate with the open ecosystem, and we want to make sure that actually the world of open source pushes the boundaries that actually pushes us to innovate as well. So that's happening as you speak.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting angle on that there. It sounds pretty good. Well, I guess maybe as a final question for you, maybe as a wrap up, as you look ahead a little bit towards this continuing evolution of both the platforms and also kind of the deployment models here, I guess what are maybe some of the bigger challenges you see kind of coming down the road over the next 6, 12, 18 months or so when it comes to, VMware's work in the space, but also just the ecosystem in general kind of evolving? What's some of the bigger challenges you see?
Yeah, I would say fragmentation is one aspect that also represents an opportunity for us. Some of the initiatives I'm working on with our team is to actually have one of the widest, broadest ecosystem out there by working on, for example, VNF and VNF onboarding, so very large ecosystem to just peace of mind, right? Making sure that in a fragmented environment, you can count on large corporation, making sure that everything is taken care behind the scenes. I would say the pace of deployment is something that we see accelerating and steady and accelerating. So we want to make sure that it keeps that way. I think probably in the next couple of years there will be the crossing the chasm in terms of where networks are, where networks will be, again, we see one by one the network functions being migrated, and this is something which I don't see stopping right now.
Yeah, and it's been amazing to kind of watch the speed of all this because when it comes to virtualization for telecom operators, it is still somewhat new. I mean, it's the past 3 or 4 years, but just watching the pace of that evolution has been pretty remarkable, really. I mean, it's gone from being just barely talked about to today. It is core to a lot of what operators are doing. And again, there are all these challenges ahead, like you mentioned, but it seems like there's so much momentum behind it that the timing of it seems to be really kind of coming into better focus, really.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, standardization technically only happened 3.5 years ago, which in the telco space is not, it's not a long time ago. Yeah. But at the same time, many other things are maturing around it, new consortium forming and deployment forming. So we also see the implementation going from isolated services or some initial segmented parts of the network to actually being thought from a much more of a holistic perspective. How can I actually now lay the foundation for the complete transformation of for example, my core network as an example?
Yeah, I'm guessing obviously having operators that are aggressive on this, it's got to be good for the vendor community as well. I mean, you guys, it's nice to have, I'm sure, at least in the telecom space, to have some willing customers out there who are actually looking forward to kind of this evolution as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Wait, Gabriel, definitely appreciate the great insight on this. Obviously, it is a topic that is ever evolving, and you guys are obviously a core to a lot of that as well. So definitely appreciate the good insight on the topic. Thanks so much, and hopefully we'll touch base again soon. Well, thanks for watching this week's show, and make sure to check out our next NFV SDN Reality Check when we speak with Orange Business Services on the value of SD-WANs. Thanks for watching.
NFV SDN Reality Check with Dan Meyer is a production of RCR TV. To suggest show topics or to reach Dan, you can find him on email, dmeyer@rcrwireless.com, and on Twitter @Meyer_Dan. For more Dan, news on NFV SDN and everything wireless, find your way over to rcrwireless.com.